Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Show City Council to order. By roll call, see that all council members are present with the exception of Council Member Alsop, who's excused this evening. I would like to welcome those of you who are with us tonight in the audience, as well as those who may be watching at home this evening. We'd like to begin by an invocation. We've asked Council Vice Mayor Hatch if he'd lead us in an invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilwoman Kakavas. Please stand.
Our kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for the opportunity that we have to join together this evening on behalf of the city of Show. We ask that our deliberations will be fair and just. We thank Thee for the opportunity that we have to serve this wonderful city and its citizens. We ask that if it be Thy will, we would receive some moisture from this passing weather system. We thank Thee for the opportunity to live in this free country, and we express our love and appreciation to those service personnel that are away from their families, that they will be blessed and return safely to their arms of their loved ones. Again, we thank Thee for this opportunity, and we say this in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Mayor and Councilwoman Kakavas. Appreciate that. I'd like to begin this evening here, call to the public. Any citizen desiring to speak on a matter that is not scheduled on this agenda may do so at this time. See nobody moved, I'll close call to the public and come back to special events. We have first tonight our financial mid-review here, Mr. Justin Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Tonight we prepared a PowerPoint presentation just to give the council an update on where we're at through December 31st of our fiscal year 2018. As an overview, since the numbers we're presenting tonight are through December 31st, when we look at the percentages, 50% is our benchmark. That's where we're at through the year through December, so that's what we'll compare our numbers to. We're going to look at general fund revenues and expenses, take a look at our sales tax performance, and then look at some other key revenues and expenses compared to the budget. So getting started, for general fund revenues on the far right side, you'll see the percent collected through December 31st. And you can see that we're performing a little better than 50% for our key tax, which is the sales tax and franchise fees. We're at 62%, and that's reflected on the report that the council gets from staff monthly for the sales tax report. On the state shared revenues, you see there that we're at 27%, and the reason for that is those revenues are collected through the state, but they're also recorded or journalized into the accounting software system. So right now we're up through October in our bank reconciliations, so you'll see that number rise. As far as the actual numbers, it's better than 27%, but what's actually recorded in the system, that's what it is currently. So we don't have any, looks low because of the way it's recorded in the system. Permits and fees are up, magistrate court up, and we're looking good basically in all areas. A little bit low on the library side and on the grant side. Some of those are weighted more towards the end of the year. We really don't have any concerns in any of these areas year to date so far. Any questions on those? The next one we have is our general fund expenses. To start off with, we have the council, and the reason that is such a low number is because of the contingency balance. We haven't really used any of the council contingency or very much of it yet, so that's why it's such a low number. In general operations, there are projects and other things that are in that budget that will hit later on in the year, and it's well below the budget, but we expect it to be on track just like we budgeted. And from administrative services on down to information services. We're pretty close to 50%. Some are slightly more, some are slightly less. Most of that's due to just certain activities that aren't evenly distributed throughout the whole budget year. So if there's travel, for example, or projects or small equipment purchases that have taken place in the early part of the year, they may not be evenly distributed every month. You may hit most of those in July. So we've done our reviews with these and we don't have any concerns on the expense side. I think that's all I had to highlight there. Are there any questions from the council or mayor on this one?
I don't have any. Does any council members?
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a chart that gets sent out with the monthly sales tax report. The bar in the red color on the far right of each month up through December indicates where we're at for fiscal year 2018, and you can see based on the chart that we're performing pretty well for fiscal year 2018 through December, and the sales tax have come in pretty strong. We don't necessarily see it in one industry or one particular area. If we look at the detail, we see that all areas seem to be performing above where they have in the last few years. So we feel pretty good about where we're at with sales tax collections. This is a 3D chart for the state shared revenues, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Fines and forfeitures coming in strong there. With the photo enforcement, we didn't budget any for that, but we still continue to get some residual on collections for the photo enforcement. The airport revenues, performing right at 50% or 55% for leases and fees on the fuels and oils, and the fuel resales performing very well. I think a large part of that's attributed to our airport, our essential air service, Boutique Air purchasing fuel, which in the past we haven't always had that from our provider. So they're spending quite a bit of money on a monthly basis purchasing fuel from the airport. And our utility fund revenues, this one's probably the easiest one to predict as far as where we're going to be with the revenues, because we have a pretty good idea of our customer base and what our fees are going to do with the CPI each year. And they're all showing up as 49% because of rounding, but some of them are high 49, some are low 48 or high 48s, low 49. So they're not all exactly 49, but they're all performing just as we had expected. On the expense side, in each category, we're below budget there. We expect a lot of the wastewater projects to get kicked off this spring, so you'll see that number rise. But each year we've underspent budget in each of these areas, and some of that's because of project carryover. That's what we have for a presentation tonight. One thing I would like to add is where we feel like we're at with the economy. I attended a conference last week, and we had a economist from back east that had a lot of good things to say about the national economy and his projections, and everything's looking pretty good as far as the key indicators go, and we feel confident that we'll stay strong here, because a lot of times we tend to trend with the national trends. We follow the Phoenix metro area. When they're doing well, we're typically doing well. And at this point, we don't really have any concerns moving forward through this fiscal year. And we have a good outlook for fiscal year 19 as we start putting the budget together. So that's all I have for tonight, Mayor. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What's the stock market going to do tomorrow?
If I could tell you that, I wouldn't be here.
Councilmember Crittenden.
You said that we have a tendency to do like Phoenix does, so you're saying we aren't really one way or the other independent up here? But why do we trend like Phoenix?
My thoughts on that is a lot of our revenues come through tourism, and a lot of that tourism comes from the Phoenix Valley. So when they're performing well, those people have extra money. They tend to travel, they come buy homes, they come go skiing, they come do things in our area. And I think that's where the bulk of our tourism comes from. That's just my own personal
The
theory.
reason I'm asking that is because there's no snow, so you don't have skiers. So,
But we still have nice weather, and we haven't, as far as the traffic and how busy the stores are around town, at least visibly.
exactly.
It hasn't dropped off as much as it does sometimes, even though there's not skiing, there's still people traveling up to the mountain.
Any other questions? Appreciate your report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item we have is the consent calendars. Anything, any additions or corrections to the consent calendar? I'll look for a motion. Have a motion by Council Member Leach, seconded by Council Member Crittenden. All those in favor? Any opposed? See that pass 6-0. Next item is new business. From the time first here to Mr. Brown. Public hearing of resolution number R2018-03, increasing water rights preservation fee for the city of Show Low. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, we addressed this topic in our council retreat back in October. As we've seen the cost of litigation increase, we felt it necessary to come back to the council to increase that water preservation fee. And so on December 5th, 2017, the council adopted a notice of intention to increase the water rates in accordance with Arizona revised statutes. Following the passage of that notice of intent, the notice of intent was published in a local newspaper of general circulation, which included the notice that a public hearing was scheduled on this topic for tonight, February 6th. Just a little background, on June 1st, 2010 was when the council originally adopted the water preservation fee. The fee was to cover the ongoing costs associated with the water rights adjudication, and the fee was set at $75 per connection per month. We're proposing that that rate increase to $1.50 per connection per month, given that our litigation costs are increasing. And as council is aware, we've got some trials upcoming. One is with the Hopi tribe later this year in September, and then after that we have some other trials scheduled with the Navajo Nation. The litigation is pretty intense. There's a lot going on in the litigation, a lot of motions, a lot of depositions, and it costs us to fight that and to respond to those. So that's the reason for the increase in the fee. We feel it's important to preserve our water rights. That's one of the great things that Show Low has, and its benefit is a couple of lakes and water around here, and we have to try to preserve those. We did put in the resolution as similar to the one we did in 2010, is that if the city manager ever feels like that the costs associated with the water rights preservation are no longer needed or not as much, we can reduce this fee in the future if we need to. So again, we've gone through the process as required by the statute. We've adopted the notice of intention. We've published in the paper, and we've set tonight for the public hearing and the passage of the resolution. Once it's approved by council, it would be effective 30 days after adoption. So this rate would be reflected on the April 2018 customer bill. We're available for any questions that the council has.
Go with questions here of council first before we do public hearing. So, yeah. Councilmember Leach.
So we can reduce the payment. Do we have to go through the whole same process, or can we do it at a council meeting?
We can do it just through administratively through the city manager. If
It
we
doesn't
ever
have to
feel-
come back to the council then?
Right. And I'm sorry, I might have said $75, but it's 75 cents per connection per month. Sorry about that. I saw the dollar sign, that's what threw me off. It's 75 cents per connection per month.
Councilmember Crittenden.
Very, very briefly for public information, what happens if the tribes, Hopi and Navajo, win?
Well, that's a complicated answer, but basically, they have the control and the authority over their water rights, and basically, they could set the rates, and we would probably have to pay quite a bit more than we're paying now.
Rates for what?
Water. They would control the water.
Groundwater too?
Surface water. And so They would probably charge quite a bit more for us to purchase our water from them.
You think?
And this,
There'd become a point in time where they would start basically assessing us or charging us for the water.
Right.
And we would have to, pass that on.
that's the worst case scenario, but yeah, that's what could happen.
Okay.
Yes, Councilmember Kelly.
Well, I think if we think it through, that point in time would be as soon as they win. If they win their claim, because as I understand from reading this stuff, they claim 100% of the groundwater and 100% of the surface water. Is that not their general claim? I mean, and so we would have to buy our water to drink and, wash our cars and water our yard from the tribes, and we're having to really no decision but to defend this. I mean, I hate raising this fee. One reason I find it more palatable is that the minute we can see we don't need it, we've set it up to where even the city manager, without coming to the council, I'm betting he would ask us to vote on it, but he would have the authority the minute, let's say the lawsuit is terminated and a settlement agreement is arrived without going through the whole thing, and we don't need these high attorney fees. Just next month, we don't collect it from the people. So their water bill would actually drop by $1.50 if we took it to zero overnight. But we don't have any choice in this one. And I think, well, that's the way it is.
Well, and the same is still true on the flip side. The $1.50, we hope will cover the cost, but it may not. And
It
so
may
we may
not.
have to have another increase down the road before this is ever settled in litigation as well.
That's more than likely, I think.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, you mentioned surface water. Now, does that include the aquifers?
Yeah, the aquifers are considered groundwater. Surface water would be things like Shola Lake, Falls Hollow Lake.
But isn't our Shola Lake water exempt from theirs with the award that we've been awarded so far?
Well, we were applying to preserve those water rights, but if the Hopis, he asked the question, what happens if they prevail? In the worst case scenario, they prevail on everything and we lose, yeah, they could take our surface water right.
Okay. Yeah, the question right now.
We don't think that's going to happen. I want to be clear. We don't think that's going to happen, but we got to stay in the fight and we got to continue to.
Yeah, we can't ignore it and figure hey, that can't happen. And just for the general education, the Hopi tribe isn't a very big piece of land or very large number of people. They got to have limited resources. Just how much can they throw in the game?
Well, remember that they have the U.S. government on their side.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I knew that.
Yeah, you do. So they're getting some money.
It's
from
us
that.
against the
Right.
feds is what.
The reason that it's important, the first trial was with the Hopi tribe, and it's a smaller reservation with smaller people, but what we're fighting is it's going to set some precedents for the other trials with the Navajo Nation and others. So you can't just ignore it and think that, we'll worry about the Navajo Nation and not the Hopi tribe. The Hopi tribe is the first trial, and we want to set the precedent in the right manner.
Right. So we are facing the financial backing of the federal government.
To some degree, it's a complicated question because the federal government steps in to preserve some of what they're doing, but the Hopi tribe also has their own attorneys fighting for different aspects of it, so it gets very complicated.
Any other questions at this time of council? Okay, see another. This time this is scheduled for a public hearing. I'll open this up for a public hearing. Anybody who would like to address this at this time publicly may do so. Then nobody moved, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for more discussion or a motion. But Councilmember Leach.
I move to adopt resolution number R2018-03, increasing the water rights preservation fee for the City of Show Low Municipal Water Utility.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Kelly. All those in favor? Any opposed? See, that passed 6-0. Just a notation here, maybe that is the proposed fee here of $1.50 instead of just, I know we didn't,
Yeah.
is that okay?
Up from 75 cents.
Yeah, I mean, like the mayor indicated, I mean, we'll go with $1.50, but that doesn't mean we might not be back in a little bit saying we need a little more. We'll have to see how it goes.
Next item is item 8C, consideration of award of purchase of decorative lights. Mr. Cup?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The fiscal year 2017-18 budget includes $193,000 to purchase and install 39, not 38. I apologize for the typo. Decorative light poles at locations on North 9th and East Cooley Streets. Staff received a quote for the materials through the National Intergovernmental Purchasing Alliance after receiving approval from the City Council at its January 2nd, 2018 meeting to enter into a cooperative purchasing agreement. The lighting upgrades are another phase of the continuing downtown streetscape project. The materials will match the existing decorative poles on the Deuce Clubs and 9th Street. Most of the light poles will replace existing poles, thereby saving the significant cost of constructing pole bases and installing electrical infrastructure. Public Works personnel will set the poles in place, and the removed poles will be repurchased or sold at auction. There will be additional costs for purchasing and installing conduit and wire, and for constructing 4 pole bases. The cost of these items is far below the threshold for City Council approval, and these purchases will keep the total project cost below the budgeted amount. Staff recommends awarding the purchase of decorative lights to Brown Wholesale Electric in an amount not to exceed $139,507.56, and that price is for 39 poles, not 38. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yes, Councilmember Leach.
Is that the only bid we got? How come?
Well, we did it through that cooperative purchasing, so it's basically that work, or those materials are already bid by the cooperative purchasing folks, so we don't have to bid those.
Okay.
That's quite a bit less per pole than what we paid on Main Street. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, that price has come down some, and the other thing is on the Deuce Clubs, we have the double mast arms, and these are the single mast arms like we're doing down 9th Street, so there's a little less expense there too.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Look for a motion. Councilwoman Kakavas?
I move to award the purchase of decorative lights to Brown Wholesale Electric in an amount not to exceed $139,507.56.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Leach. Any other discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? See that pass 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cup, appreciate it. Next item we have is summary of current events. Look to council members for any current events. Councilmember Kelly.
I would just say an appeal to everybody that's paying attention and watching to pray for moisture. We desperately need it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have no report. City manager?
Thank you, Mayor. A few items to let the council and the public know about. The Recreation Department selling tickets for $20 each for this Friday's concert by the Piano Man. He does the music of Billy Joel and Elton John. He has good reviews, and that performance is at 7:30 this Friday at the School District Auditorium, and it'll be preceded by a local group called the Paloma Street Siders. They'll be performing from 6:30 to 7:10. Tickets will be sold at the door. You can come to City Hall and purchase tickets also. Recreation staff's accepting applications for co-ed first or one pitch softball, $250 per team for ages 15 and older. And those games will begin the first week of March, weather permitting. We hope the weather doesn't permit, but that's what the schedule is. The Recreation Department's also accepting registrations for the 6th annual barbecue throwdown scheduled for Saturday, May 5th. And the library has a number of events going on in February for different ages. There's a weekly class focused on music appreciation and social development for moms and kids ages 5 and younger. That's every Tuesday, 10 to 10:30 until the end of April. Adult readers who like books and movies will have a monthly club that begins this Thursday, 6 to 8:30 p.m. They'll check out a book and a movie and compare the two. And then they have a series of NASA mini camps with a focus on engineering. They'll be held the third week in February. On February 20th, children ages 6 to 14 can make fidget spinners from 3:45 to 5. On Wednesday of that week, February 21st, children's to 5 years old will be treated to an aerodynamic paper airplane from 10 to 10:30 a.m. And then on Thursday, teens ages 12 to 19 will learn to build bridges with kiva planks and suspend games from 4 to 5:30 or to 5 p.m. And on Friday, adults will be building structures with a Lego night from 6:15 to 8. That's sponsored by NASA. And again, that's the week of February. Starts February 20th on Tuesday. If you need more information on the library events, you can contact them at 532-4070, 532-4070. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Quick question, do you have an update, Ed, on the park? What we think that's going to be done? Is the equipment here, the playground?
Well, as you know, it just started with the demolition of the existing structures. It's going to be a couple months minimum before that park's ready. And we have a sign up at the, I believe there's a sign up at the location, and we put a press release out on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think weather's permitting us to go a little ahead of schedule, but it doesn't mean that everything's going to be done until scheduled somewhat. Okay, great. Now, any other items? Seeing nothing else, we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
That was exhausting.
Don't want to slide already, do you?
Yeah, well, Ed said it was on the other side of Shoal Lake.
I'd love